Hello and welcome everyone to this month's Inside Jam session. Today we're going to explore the question, generative AI. In a generative AI world, do we still need data catalogs? Austin, one of our speakers, was saying, gosh, it's kind of like orange juice and steak. Those things aren't alike. But, today we've got Gen AI everywhere. And I think it's an important question to ask relative to this category, data catalogs that are so important. And who doesn't love a data catalog? I mean, I need to build some analytics. I go to the catalog, find the data sets I want. They're all curated. The access information's there. It's been governed. The metadata that describes it's there. It's fantastic. And I could pick and choose the data sets I want, pull them into my analysis, and I'm all set. Maybe can I get that from Gen AI? Could I just ask those same questions and get all that? I don't know. We're going to explore that today. But we also have to remember someone had to build that data catalog, do that, sort through the semantics, figure out all the relationships, understand the structures and the format, create the access streams and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of work behind the catalog. Now, maybe AI's role is to help doing some of that work. We'll explore that a little as well. So anyway, as sources arise, as the problems get more complex, we definitely found value in catalogs, but can we also, can Gen AI perform the same functions, the same curation, the same control without all the human time and touch that it takes to create the catalogs in the first place? Or really, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it's too soon. Maybe data catalogs are so robust and have so much capability and functionality at this point that, the Gen AI capabilities are just a complement at this point. But we'll explore that. So to help us explore those questions, we put together a really fabulous panel, starting with Bob Seiner. Bob, welcome, non-invasive data governance guru, author, president, principal of KIK Consulting. We've chatted online a bunch of times because I respond to your articles and that sort of thing. This is the first time we've had a chance to work together. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on these days, your firm, what's going on.
How much time do we have? We had only an hour, right, for the whole session. I'm actually trying to slow down quite a bit. Have several fantastic clients that I'm working with. It's very humbling to know that the non-invasive data governance approach has been accepted seemingly worldwide. I started by implementing data governance in a de facto way in the corporate world. And then when I started my own consulting company, I changed it and called it non-invasive data governance. The first book's been translated into 6 languages. Second one's been translated into a few. The first one was just translated into Arabic. So everywhere around the world, it seems that it's been accepted. So I'm happy to talk about it with you today, and I've got some opinions about the question that we're talking about today. So,
well, I understand you had a client last week ask you something almost like the similar question.
They did. In fact, I put together some notes for them, and so I'm going to share those notes with you as well. But yeah, with all the talk about generative AI, I was mentioning that I was in a conference at the beginning of this week, and you couldn't go through a conversation without generative AI coming into the conversation. These were all data people. These were all metadata people. These were governance and data catalog people. I didn't address the question there, but organizations are confused. There's a lot of technologies to be used. And so I have a definite answer to the question. I'll say, yeah, the data catalog, of course. Is it a question that even begs asking? Yes, of course, the data catalog is still necessary in generative AI. They're actually complementary tools. So you could actually use one. I guess you could try to generate your own LLM, large language model, and feed it all the information that would be in your data catalog. But I think that would be foolish. You've got tools that are meant to generate content, generate predictive analysis, those types of things. And then you've got a place to keep your metadata. And I think that the answer to the question is immediately off the top of my head would be yes, they're both still necessary.
So we can end the conversation now, send everybody home, or maybe we'll just explore a little more deeply.
I don't know if it's answered that simply, but it's that, yeah, I think that there's room for both of these tools. They actually complement each other.
Great. Well, let's explore that some more. Juan, principal scientist and head of the AI lab at Data.World. Tell us about yourself, your role at the company. Tell us about the company.
Got it. Well, thanks, Bob, everybody. A really pleasure to be here. I'm the principal scientist and the head of the AI lab at Data.World. I head innovation at Data.World, and my role is to do what we call co-innovation with our strategic customers to really push the barrier of what can be done with Data.World and the catalog, and push the barrier what we can do in the data catalog industry itself. For example, we've been pioneering all the research, all the work on knowledge graphs and LLMs and data catalogs, which has actually tremendously influenced right now the industry that you can start seeing today. Everybody's now talking about semantics, semantic layers, and all that context and stuff, and all that comes from the work that we've been pioneering over the last year. I've been in the data AI space for like close to 20 years. I've done startups, worked with organizations. I'm an academic by heart. As a scientist, I mean, honest, no BS. That's my tagline, which also I'm the co-host of Catalog and Cocktails, the honest, no BS data podcast going on for 4 years. And then, so Data.World, as you can imagine, yes, we're a data catalog platform. We're focusing on building that for your AI future and on entire knowledge graph architecture. The two focuses are kind of like the core catalog when it comes to like data discovery, governance, data ops, and also just recently launched our context engine, which is how we interact with all the GenAI and the large language models. We're also a public benefit corporation, something we're very proud of. We are the host for the world's largest open data community. We have over 2 million users. I think 90% of the Fortune 500 are members of the open data community at Data.World. Also, as an public benefit corporation, that's why I get to do research and publish and share all the research that we do publicly and do all our innovation, right? So very proud to be part of this company and do all the innovation.
Great. Juan, thank you for joining us today. Austin, tell us about your role as the head of data strategy at Atlan. A little bit about Atlan and then your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. So yeah, Austin Kronz, Director of Data Strategy. Very similar. I work with a certain percentage of our customers, our top customers I always say we have a great team that helps you set up Atlan, use Atlan, and then I'm sort of the one that comes in and helps build the program that would actually support that. So whether it's building a data governance program, I have a ton of conversations about data mesh and GenAI these days, kind of figuring out where governance and catalogs fit into a broader conversation so our customers are successful. My background, I've been at Atlan a few years now. Prior to that, I was a director of research, Gartner analyst, covering analytics, BI, data science, had hundreds and hundreds of conversations, probably thousands of conversations while at Gartner about data governance. And I think, how do you balance this idea of control and agility? And as new things like GenAI come up, how do we incorporate that into the conversation? Atlan, also in the data cataloging space, we like to consider ourselves an active metadata platform. A lot of the use cases, anything from foundational search discoverability of your data assets across your data estate to automated lineage, just some of the features that we're offering. And of course, GenAI is impacting our product, not just in our tool, but in how we support organizations and how they build their GenAI models internally as well. So the conversation is constantly shifting. So we strive to build a platform that is very open and extensible. And a lot of the times, we're also co-building with our customers and extending our own platform and adding features just based on the demand of customers. So really excited to talk about this topic. I should also clarify the steak and orange juice comment. I just don't think that it's GenAI or catalogs. It's very much how does GenAI impact the cataloging world, and how can catalogs fit into a GenAI strategy that any organization might have. So definitely a complementary type conversation, but I'm really excited to dive deeper. So thanks for having me.
Great. Well, Austin, then why don't we dive right into data catalogs itself? What's the most essential functions? Why do people need them at all? What do they do that makes them so valuable in the first place? And you say you've had all these conversations, Gartner and Land, etc. Net it out for the audience, data catalog 1A.
Yeah. I think I'll I want to take a step back and come back to the intro about, an organization has these catalogs that are populated. You just go there and you find your data and you build it into the analytics ecosystem. I mean, I think until 5 years ago, that was just not the experience of people using, let's say, like a legacy data catalog. I myself had built this great DevOps diagram and had a catalog icon in the middle when I was at Gartner. And I had so many clients stop me and just say, like, Austin, that is not how we use a catalog. A few people even know the catalog exists. We'd like it to be that, but that's just not what it is. So I think both Juan and I have sort of come up in this different age of catalogs where the term even has somewhat of a legacy connotation, where yes, catalogs are fundamentally, we can index your assets, make them searchable and discoverable. So you can find your tables, your dashboards, your, anything that is involved in a metadata analysis. But I think metadata has changed. Metadata isn't just tables and columns now. It is your dashboards, your pipelines, your APIs, your topics. So there's just a broader set that can be populated and hydrated into something like a catalog. So searchability and discoverability is huge. I maybe list 2 more points, but I think the other piece is, okay, what do we do with this metadata? So how can we take all of this information that's there and not just have it sit in some tool and have no one use it, right? How can we add governance capabilities on top of it? So this is where I think, you have things like tagging and certification, ownership. How can I get all of the information that a user might need to help trust and find their data? Capabilities like lineage are huge here. I think, how can I, when I get that message in Slack or Teams that dashboard didn't show up this morning, or, all these numbers look wrong, how can I very quickly have an engineer do a root cause analysis using lineage, or, even better, how can, before that change happen, before that break happens, how can they, get an impact analysis report saying like, hey, don't merge this change. It's going to break 20 dashboards downstream. So search and discovery, data governance. And I think as we get into this AI world, it's going to be crucial in like the trust and context here of building generative AI models.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think everything that Austin is saying, I'll call it just table stakes today in the industry, right? I mean, this is like the minimal requirements, and there's nothing surprising there. Also, want to zoom out. I always talk about like look at the data world. There's just been three main principles in the data world. You move data, you store and compute data, and you use data. Right? This stuff has changed, right? It's streaming and batching, whatever, ETL, ELT, it's a database, data warehouse, lakehouse, whatever you want to call it. It's BI reporting dashboards, AI, but you move data, you store, compute data, you use data. That's how it's always been for 30 plus 40 years now. And I think what has happened is that metadata, the context around the stuff has been treated as a second-class citizen. And I think with the start of big data, people were saying, oh, we're going to go dump all this data. And immediately people say, well, at some point, we're going to have so much of this stuff and it's going to get lost. So kind of the first kind of inkles of what is going to happen about metadata started coming up with like the very early things like Apache Atlas and stuff like that, very legacy things. Now that starts to come in and it's focused. Now we have to think about the personas, right? So we have the technical personas, what I call the producers, morally, and then you have like the consumers of things. Then there's technical and business personas on each side. So we start having into the move, store and compute, and also the usage, but that also applies for metadata, because you want to keep all the stuff that data is moving. It's all you want to keep track of that. So you want to be able to extract all that metadata, be able to store all that metadata, and you want to be able to go use all that metadata. So that pattern still applies, and I think what we're seeing now is that we're bringing metadata and now even now with AI. Knowledge and context as a first-class citizen. And I think that is the evolution that we're seeing. And then from the personas perspective, you have the producers, right? Your technical, the data engineers, analytics engineers, the stewards. What data do I have, right? Where does this come from? Where is this going? What is it going to break? Who has access to this? What are the policies? And then the consumers, you have the data scientists, the analysts, the BI reports, right? What data do I have? Can I share what I've done, right? Can I collaborate? And I think this is the people are using it. Now, the evolution of where this is going is like, you got all this context, all this business context. Guess what GenAI doesn't have? It knows a lot of stuff from the world and knows how to process language. It does not have the context of your business. And that's why I'm seeing, I always say, like, I dislike the term data catalog because it's more than cataloging data. It's cataloging data and knowledge in your business. All that extra context right there. So I think that
You guys you think that the data catalog is an old-fashioned term. So you must be youngsters, because I come from the days of the metadata repositories, before the data catalogs, even before Gen AI ever became a thing. So boy, I got lots of things to say about the things that you both said. So going back to Austin first, when you talked about where does the data catalog fit into Gen AI, I think one of the big considerations these days should be the exact opposite of that. Where does Gen AI fit into the data catalog? What can we use? And since most people acknowledge data catalogs as being tools to help organizations to govern their data better, I did a webinar last week on how generative AI and large language models are going to shape data governance moving forward. So I'm saying, don't just try to figure out how the data catalog fits into Gen AI, but figure out how to use Gen AI to support and to build out a data catalog. And Juan, you talked about the move, store, and compute as a lot of categories for metadata. And then I think you started to talk about something that I wanted to get to, which is there's really only 3 actions people can take with data. That is, they can define data, they can produce data, and they can use data. I think you were talking about the users of the data. And that's where the tools need to help people to put better business definition to the data, to produce better data, and certainly then to understand their data and to use it better. So if we look at using, again, as I said earlier, I think these tools are very complementary of each other. I think we need a place to store the metadata so that we know what we have and we can truly govern to the definition, production, and usage of data. Generative AI is a tool that's going to help us to get better insight out of our data, create some of the content that we may need. But it will, as you were saying, Juan, it will never know the business context unless you feed it the business context as well.
And that's why it complements. It's a flywheel. It's right, they go together. I'd actually argue that Gen AI helping data catalogs, that's just a productivity lift. Yes, we can automatically generate descriptions. Yes, we can go search. Yeah, all that's doing is making me do the task I was doing before faster, better, more efficiently, and so forth. What is going to be more valuable is to take all that business context, that knowledge, and be able to go feed it to not just an LLM. Now what we're seeing is all these agent systems, right? By the way, I bring this up. People talk about agents. This is good old fashioned AI of planning stuff that, I did my PhD 20 years ago. Like, this is what's happening now. And what do you want? You want to be able to understand your business. You want to be able to ask questions and say, oh, I know this. I also know that I don't know this. And let's go work together. I think that's what's going to supercharge the organizations and how we can really make a big shift. Otherwise, it's just going to it's a vitamin.
Oh, yeah. I think every customer I've talked to has brought up Gen AI, and I sort of break it down as Juan mentioned, right? Like, there's AI for Atlan, and then there's Atlan for AI, and those are two very different conversations. I mean, as quickly as LLMs become popularized, I think even the automated descriptions and things that Juan was mentioning, like, those even become table stakes to some extent, right?
That's already table stakes. I mean,
we should look beyond that, because Juan, I think you had made the point earlier that Gen AI has a lot of knowledge from a lot of different places, right? And so there are things that I talked about in that webinar on Dataversity a couple of weeks ago that you can use Gen AI to help you to create data policy based on the regulatory controls associated specifically within your industry. And again, you can catalog that you have the policy. You can even use generative AI to generate, generating content is what it does. Generate content. I'm not saying that we should say, okay, here's the data elements. Give me a list of what the definitions are for my business. It's not going to do that. It may get you 35, 40% of the way there. It may be that time saver.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
So maybe it is worth double clicking a little bit on, like, we're calling them table stakes. I mean, we live in this world, so it's kind of like when you have the conversation every day, it's hard to take a step back. But I mean, for customers, what is the hardest thing about implementing a data governance program or using a data catalog? It was always, the traditional approach was, what if I just go email 100 people and say, come write definitions for me, come do documentation, right? I mean, that was the biggest gap. From a technical standpoint, technical metadata is almost entirely automated. You utilize a connector, it pulls the information into the system. Any type of technical metadata is going to be there automatically. It is the business context that we have to get creative with. And I think this is where GenAI has a lot of opportunity to help enrich the catalog with business metadata. And as you mentioned, like it may, I think we have some stats like over 60% of the time, something might be accepted if it's a GenAI description or a README file or something like that. But I've always said, people make better editors than they do authors. It's much more likely that they're going to come in and edit a description if it's slightly off or something like that. It's a good starting place. You avoid the blank canvas problem when you can automate descriptions. Something else I've seen powerful, another simple like table stakes feature, but is incredibly powerful is all of these tables that we're building and all of this logic is sort of encapsulated into maybe a SQL code or a DBT model or something like that. GenAI having the ability, I think everyone talks about NLQ and in creating the SQL queries. I actually see a lot more benefit in turning the SQL queries into human readable language, because if I just started at the company, I don't want to go read through 250 lines of SQL to figure out how a view was built or how a table was built. I can actually just say, explain this table to me. And it will go through the SQL and say, what we're doing is taking information from here and here, and this is what it ends up being. And so for someone who maybe has never written a line of SQL in their life, it's actually really helpful. And that is business context in some way. Like, this is how we structured the table that contains our key metrics, and here's what it might mean. So there is a ton of, I know it is, and it's crazy to say like it's a simple feature now, but I think it's incredibly beneficial.
One thing to add to this, like I agree with Austin, that's how things have been kind of progressing. But we're talking about this like bottoms up technical approach. And what happens a lot, we go end up boiling the ocean. That's why you want to bring in people to go do this, because you brought in all this technical metadata, it's all empty. But why? I mean, it goes back. Bob knows me. What am I going to go say, Bob? You got to show me the money. Why are we doing this type of stuff? So we have to go back and saying, what is the business goal that we're trying to achieve? And how is all this metadata and governance work helping me achieve those goals? One of the things that we say a lot in the podcast is governance is like brakes in a car. Why? Why do you have brakes in a car? People usually say, oh, to slow me down, right? That's a defensive governance. But I also can see brakes in a car to help enable me to drive fast safely. So you want to have the balance of both these things. What we're seeing right now with AI and generative AI in particular, especially because everybody wants to chat with their data, they're saying, I want to be able to ask these questions, and then you ask them, because this is the people process approach that we're doing. So I say, okay, what are the questions you want to go ask? Why do you want to go ask them? Who's asking them? They better be executive level questions. How are they answering those questions today? What is the pain of answering those questions today? And then when we prioritize what those questions are, that you know that they're value right there because you have all the whys behind that. Then you go trace back and you say, hey, where is the data for this? Okay, this is the big mess that we have. So now you have a very focused area where you're going to go investigate your metadata, create your context. And guess what? That context is now going to be able to provide to your generative AI or AI application such that you can actually now ask those questions in the natural language form. You get all that context. As we were talking also, what does AI need right now that we're struggling with is a trust. And we define trust as accuracy, explainability, and governance. And all of this is being provided by the context that lives in your data catalog. And specifically, even all the research that we've shown, that is a knowledge graph. We have all the research that's showing this, and everybody's now following our lead on this. So I think that is the complement of where a catalog is coming with generative AI. But again, tied to business value, that's how we're going to go start. Otherwise, we're just going to have like this, I'm boiling the ocean and I got all these tables and all this metadata and we need all these policies and make sure nothing happens. But you invest in all these policies, but nobody really cares about that stuff. But you're just doing it. You still need to do it because you need to cover your ass, right? For regulatory purposes and all that stuff. But we need to have this balance. So brakes in a car.
But I would just add one more thing to that. I would say you need to be able to tie anything you're doing to business value. Especially in this day and age, because I'm not a data catalog guru, data catalog. I'm a practitioner. I'm a practitioner helping organizations to stand up data governance programs. And you know what? We ask that question of our clients every day as to why are we doing this? What business value are we going to bring? When we create a data strategy, I'm also part of faculty member at Carnegie Mellon, and they're what is now called their Chief Data and AI Officer program, where it used to be just Chief Data Officer program. And you know what? You start with a business strategy, and then you create a data strategy to help you to achieve your business strategy. And then you do data governance or a data catalog or a Gen AI to help you to achieve those things that you did in your data strategy to support your business strategy. So it always comes back.
Yeah, let's be honest in OBS. We all agree with you. I mean, as we were saying, but in practice, a lot of people are not paying attention to that because we're talking to the technical folks who care about those technical features, and they don't even understand sometimes how the business works. And this is the problem that we do. This is why I'm saying we live in this data first world. It's all technical. We need to have a paradigm shift to what I call a knowledge first world, where it's a social technical paradigm shift. We need to focus more on these people and processes. And I mean, I'm telling you the methodology that we run, right? We call it like an iron thread. Like, give me 3 questions because 2 is too little, 4 is too much. And then you start building, you make it just for this slip around things. And you show, I mean, quick wins, start small. Anyways, I think this is, I immediately know when I'm in, like in any meetings, if I'm in a room and nobody can tell me what is the business problem, but they all want to run into the tool and start doing things, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing about being on the vendor side of things now is you get a lot more opportunities to ask, like, why are you asking about that? You know, like why do you have a 300 checklist of features that you want?
Exactly.
Why do you want this thing? And you know, it's honestly not. I think there's a whole podcast we could have on like the amount of data leaders that aren't really even sure what their business does. Right. And I think the most valuable onboarding that you could do for like a data scientist or a data governance person is like sit them with a business executive to explain the ins and outs of how our business actually functions, because that is the biggest gap. Like, you could hire the smartest person in the world. You could hire the data governance person who's been in the industry forever and knows what not to do, what to do. But like, if they don't understand how what they're about to do impacts their business, I think they're just going to look in the wrong direction for everything. So, I mean, I see this all the time. Like, and there's a reason why, like, a lot of the case studies of the bleeding edge technologies come from companies that everyone knows what they do. Like, if you look at Netflix and Uber and like any of the FANG type companies, like everyone sort of gets the business inherently, and because it's very out in the open. But like, if you look at a company that's been around for 50 or 100 years and the data team is in and of itself thousands of people, well, yeah, it makes perfect sense that someone on that team just understands, like, we need to improve data quality. It's like, why? What data quality? It's like, well, we have a data quality metric that we need to go up. And that's, you know, my favorite question to ask someone, just to understand, like you said, Juan, how to figure out who you're in the room with is like, how do you get your bonus at the end of the year? Tell me how you get your bonus at the end of the year, and I'll tell you.
That's fun. I want to tie this. You know what? We've been talking about technologies and those vendors. Let's go tie this to some customer stuff. I want to tie this specifically and tie to something that Monica on the chat is saying. So one of our customers, Prologis, the world's largest kind of logistics real estate company. If you buy anything on Amazon, it goes through their warehouse, basically. So they're saying we need to improve data quality, right? Because they have all these data quality issues, but they also are tying it. They tied it to a particular a set of business use cases that they did. Now, what they did, here's the incentive, the people and process and leadership, executive leadership. They said, let's make a bonus program. 25% of everybody's bonus in the executives, boots on the ground in the warehouse. 25% of everybody's bonus is tied to the data quality metric that they're doing. But it's not just any random data quality metric. They focused on a specific business use case. For example, the height of a warehouse. What happens if I have the incorrect height of a warehouse? I'm leaving money on the table. Oh, I said it was 40 feet. It could have been 50 feet. I could have sold more space. I said it was 50 feet. It's actually 40 feet. I have a bunch of stuff. It's not going to fit, right? I'm losing money. So right there, they made all these metrics for very specific use cases. And then next time people were saying, oh, I'm going to put in that number. I'm going to think about it, right? Because it's my money in my pocket to go do that. Now, tying it to curation, I think one of the things that's going to be happening, or this is what I'm pushing, this is the trend that I am seeing, but I also want to push it more, is that we need to focus more on knowledge. And I'm calling it the knowledge engineering. Knowledge engineering needs to be kind of the next sexiest role. We had a data scientist, a data engineer. So if I talk about the height, what does a height mean? Oh, well, the height, right? It's a number, a natural number. It should be between 20 feet and 50 feet. Actually, you know that buildings in the U.S. or regulations that before 95, it could be 30 feet, whatever. So you have all that business context, and you need to be able to understand that, the meaning, and make sure that you're defining the rules based on that content. So you're working with the business to understand that knowledge and connecting it to the data. At the end, what did Prologis do? Yeah, they improved their business and their quality and made money on those business use cases. But most importantly, culture. They now have created a culture of people to care about data because they understand the business around that. And now they're leveraging that. Next time somebody else is going to go something shady like that, it's going to be frowned upon. That's why I dislike also data literacy. We need more business literacy in the world.
Want more Insight Jam? Follow us on Instagram for exclusive content like a daily dose of best practices and buying advice from industry experts and leading solution providers. Or subscribe to our YouTube channel for long-form highlights from our expert panel discussions. And if you prefer to listen, please rate and review the Insight Jam podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Google. The Solutions Review team is hard at work collecting the best enterprise technology information from around the globe, so don't miss out. Now, let's get back to the show.
You guys are on fire. You're just on fire here. This is fantastic. Let me try to organize things a shade just in order to help the audience keep up with the conversation. So I think we talked about producer, the role of the catalog, define, produce, and consume data. It's a central infrastructure. It touches a lot of things, governance. There's a lot of people, process, and technology around it. With respect and valuable and getting more and more valuable as the knowledge economy speaks or advances. And talking about AI, we've identified a number of cases where AI is this fabulous enabler. Juan talked about productivity lift in some of the efforts that are required to create, manage, and operate a catalog. We talked about Austin talked about automating some of the descriptions and helping people to be editors and auditors or authors. And the other thing Austin talked about was humanizing the metadata, being able to convert the using GenAI to convert the SQL to something more understandable, so we get that better business knowledge and start that virtuous cycle, and add the value out of bringing in more business context that might not have been traditional sources of the business context. So, such as some of the examples Juan's talking about, all height of that's nowhere in the metadata. That's in the building codes and the specs and the diagram. And then the value of understanding opportunity based on the actual consumption and use, and the opportunity analysis, so that we can really use AI to help us focus our efforts, follow the money, so to speak, but what are the use cases where we need more data, where we need more context, where we need more focus. So a lot of what we've really talked about is AI as this enabler to do the things you're trying to do with a catalog, which really people, process, technology, we're really exploring. We've gone well beyond the technology, and we're really talking about people and process now. So a lot of, and in large organizations, we're up to complexity. So a lot of things going on. Let's help maybe sort it out a little bit with what would be then some intelligent strategies that people can use to kind of take these new Gen AI capabilities, these advancement in data cataloging, and that sort of thing. What would be some good strategies that could be adopted, and people could then move forward as an organization? So let's start with you, Austin. Got some ideas? You're the head of data strategy at Atlan, so let's talk about strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is strategies for getting started with Gen AI and catalogs. Is that?
Well, what would be a kind of a combo, an intelligent strategy for the combination of the two? I mean, how do you use, Gen AI to maybe accelerate your catalog, or your data strategy in general? Where's the 1 + 1 = 6?
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, again, stepping back from catalogs and GenAI, to Juan's point, what are you trying to solve? Like, I think every consultant and researcher, me included, it says, get a quick win, start small. And it means almost nothing if they don't have the context of, how they're thinking about it. Because sometimes a quick win, I've talked to, customers before they started using Atlan, their mindset was like, the quick win would be, well, what if we get the technical metadata and then the business data metadata for everything? And then it's like, I don't think that's the right approach. It's more of like, what is the business use case? And then get whatever you need to help support that from a governance perspective. So it's more of like a horizontal approach rather than like, let's get everything in quick win vertically. So GenAI and catalogs, right? I think evaluate what you can do in your current solution. Like, we're producing technology. If any tech vendor that you're using right now hasn't sent you something about incorporating GenAI into the processes they already have, I'm not quite sure why you're leveraging that vendor, right? Like, so start with what you have. If there's a process that can be, made faster, save time. Sometimes those operational efficiencies are a great way to just communicate small value and quick wins. I think the other piece is more of, all right, you're probably exploring, like, how can we incorporate LLMs into our business model, right? How can we start to build things? We have a private equity company that's a customer of ours who I think really has a clear understanding of this bridge between unstructured data and structured data and how LLMs and catalogs can bridge that, which is essentially saying, everyone wants to do natural language queries, not necessarily new, but with LLMs, I think the challenge with NLQ was always like context. And so this private equity company is essentially taking their contract data and a lot of what they have with their different investments, their investment companies, their portfolio companies, and now saying, like, think of a question, what was total it's very basic, right? Very basic question here. Well, like, tell me about this portfolio company and their total revenue last year. To answer that question, what do you need? Yeah, you need unstructured data that has company descriptions and things like that might help the end user. But you also need somewhere in a table in structured data to go find whether it's revenue, might not be called revenue, it might just be called rev underscore something else, but in the description, it has revenue. And so I think catalogs that have this metadata context that can now improve the results of an LLM to guide that to find the correct structured data and give the right response for the portfolio company, plus the unstructured element, is kind of where we're going with catalogs. So it's almost this metadata control plane that is feeding context back and forth. We just did a demo at Snowflake Summit with Cortex AI. We had an example where, Snowflake has Cortex AI without Atlan's metadata, get a completely incorrect answer, right? When we enrich it with our APIs and are actually providing metadata from Atlan to Snowflake Cortex in a natural language query, we get a significantly improved result. It's like accuracy is 100% for a very basic question. But I mean, this is where I think the future of catalogs and LLMs are going, right? Is you need the context to provide an accurate answer, and accurate in the context of what that user is asking, right? So,
so summarizing, start with the business use case. Keep your, remember, why do anything? Why do this? Why do it now? Elevate what you can do. Look to your vendors. If you have a catalog, see what their capabilities are in the AI space. Make sure you're using them, and if they're not adding those capabilities and providing some of those value adds that we discussed just a few moments ago, then you might be time to think about another vendor. And then 3, look for these new opportunities where we're bringing unstructured and structured data together, and new ways to think about the business problems and the business use cases. That was fantastic. Juan, what would you say in terms of strategy, next few years, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So let me zoom out and kind of connect with something that Austin was saying. What's fascinating is that we're now realizing in the last year how much context metadata is so important in this GenAI. Like, actually at Snowflake last year, I mean, by the way, my backgrounds are knowledge graph. I've written so many books on knowledge graphs. I was my PhD and stuff. Like, I have been super advocate about this stuff. And that's why Data World is a data catalog on a knowledge graph. And I was telling the Snowflake saying, look, everybody is now experimenting this natural language and generating code. You need to have the semantics, the knowledge graph. And they're like, yeah, I get it. About how do we do that and stuff. So it's actually last year that the Snowflake product team, they challenged us, they challenged me, and we were like, show us, give us a benchmark to go do that. And that was all the work that we did about creating the benchmark, saying we want to do question answering over your structured data, your SQL data. What happens with LLM? What happens if you don't have a knowledge graph? And what happens if you do have a knowledge graph? The increase was 3 times more based on a bunch of stuff that we did. And then actually the last research that we pushed out a couple of weeks ago got that to 4, even more than 4 times. The point being is, if you don't invest in semantics, if you don't invest in metadata, if you don't invest in knowledge graphs, and you want to go do this LLM stuff, you will fail. Don't be a failure. So, but that's still technical. So that's kind of, so now let's start from the top. So it's always a business strategy. Actually, another pet peeve of mine when people talk, oh, what is your data strategy? What is your AI strategy? It's all a business strategy, and it's all just part of that, right? So again, let me tie it to customers that we're working with. We're talking about this, like Power Digital is a digital marketing firm, right? They collect data for their customers about Shopify data with Google Analytics and stuff, and they have their analytics platform, and they're trying to drive new opportunities for revenue. They want to offer new things that they can go sell to their customers. One of their opportunities is like, oh, we want to be able to have this chat interface with that, because they realize that people are asking a bunch of questions in what they call the framed view of what the analytics that they have. But after they look at that, they have a bunch of other questions that they can't answer that. So then these questions get sent back to the company, and then they have this backlog of stuff and whatever, right? So one, I can sell something to the customer. I can reduce the backlogs of the issues that I have, right? And they want to increase revenue. They want to reduce the backlog question. That's a top level objective. They said, well, if we have this feature that allows people to go ask questions, then that can make more money and save and reduce the ticket. So that's an example of, we have a top level objective we can do. So, and they want to be able to go ask questions. Which products do customers buy the most on their first purchase? What about on their second purchase? What about on their third purchase? Like, those are the types of questions that you may not have a dashboard for that type of stuff. And by the way, this is a customer facing product. Another company worked with WPP, right? They're the world's largest ad agency in the world. They are a creative company. They need to be able to ask questions on the fly when they're right in front of their customers. They want to be able to say, hey, how many households in California have high income that own an EV, are interested in an EV? Those are the type of questions they want to be able to ask right on the fly. They have no time to go build a dashboard or whatever, that stuff. So that's the business strategy that they're focusing on, right? So it's all about new revenue opportunities. How can we reduce the time to that? So I think number one, again, is business strategy. Then a second thing is on the people side, is I think we need to start investing. As I said, we need to invest in semantics and knowledge. That's not just technology. We need to invest on the people side. And that means, first of all, education. We need to invest in, how do we show people that 1 + 1 is greater than 2? So for example, if I'm going to invest in all the semantics, I'm doing it for this particular use case, but that is completely reusable. Right? An example is like, oh, let's go model. People ask, how many canceled orders do we have? What does canceled orders mean? Oh, it's orders that have a status refund. Okay, if I just do understanding of that, I can ask so many other questions around that. So I was kind of doing the work to answer 1 or 2 questions instead of like answer 10, 15 questions. 1 + 1 is greater than 2. So we need to be able to share those examples to people, say, oh, I want to invest that because that's making me resilient. Then we also need to invest in what I'm calling the knowledge engineering, right? It's who's managing all this knowledge? Who's the bridge between the technical and the business to keep maintaining that? So that is the people side that we need to go invest. So that's part of your strategy. And the third one is the technical side, right? We need to have the tools that are going to let us manage all this business context for today, for the use cases of today, and the unknown use cases of tomorrow, right? Our position is that, and research and everything shows that knowledge graphs are the natural way to be able to go manage that. So from a technical perspective, I urge everybody to look at knowledge graphs as a way to go manage that. And then finally, something to start, but I want people to start thinking about this is, I predict that there's going to be a context wars. We've had this context before. What was business objects, right? All these semantic layers are not new things, right? Where did that context used to live? A lot in the BI tools. So what we're going to start seeing is all these vendors saying, oh, I manage the context. BI tools are going to say manage the context. Data teams like Snowflake, they're going to say, I want the context. ETL tool says, I want the context. My position, personally, and also from my company, is that context should be independent. That context should be in its own layer, and that context should live in a data catalog, in a knowledge graph. And actually, I think even Gartner said one of the top 10 trends in data engineering right now is to have semantics and knowledge graph, and specifically these RDF, these semantic web technologies, RDF, OWL, Sparkle. So I think you want to have that independent layer of the context. So that's a prediction I have. And I tell people within your strategy, where are you going to have that context? How is that going to live? How is that managed? That should be part of your strategy too, from the technical perspective. That's my long-winded answer. Apologies for taking a bit long.
That's all right. You were on a roll. Robert, roll on.
Like I said, I only get called Robert when I'm in trouble. So maybe I'm in trouble at this point. Wow, when I'm the third person to answer a question, all these things that I take notes that I want to talk about are all addressed by both of these gentlemen. So that's very nice. I'm hoping I can bring a different perspective to this as well, because both of these folks here, they work for software companies, for data catalog tool vendors. It's amazing that we talk so much about business strategy and making certain that we align those things that we're doing. Again, GenAI and a data catalog, they're both just tools to help us to achieve our business strategy. There may be strategies for each of those that fall within the business strategy, but still, it seemed as both of you, the two of you, your answers still kind of related back to a lot of the technology. I was really happy to hear Juan start talking about the people side. The people side is really what governance is all about. And that's the perspective I want to add to this. A good friend of mine, Len Silverstein, has said to me many times, and I've quoted him earlier this week, that we shouldn't even call it data governance. We should call it people governance, because it's people's behavior that is really going to affect change within our organizations. Getting them to help to articulate what they're trying to achieve in the business is a big part of that. So I just want to add the perspective of the whole people side. I want to kind of add on to what Juan said and say that the people side of things, when you're creating an intelligent strategy for your organization, it's not, the business is not just going to come out to you and tell you exactly what they want. You got to invest in the people who are asking the appropriate questions to get them to speak up about what's important. I haven't seen a data governance program be successful, or a catalog program that's been successful where it hasn't been tied to business value and the business use cases. So again, I just wanted to add to what both of these guys said, but keep in mind that people side, because data governance and people governance and providing them the tools that will help them to achieve the business strategy is really what this is all about.
Austin, thanks, Bob. Austin, you didn't call out the people part per se. I'll give you a chance to kind of bring some of that out right now. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the work I do with our customers is on the people side. And I think, like, I just presented with Grainger and North American Bankcard this week at Snowflake Summit. And a good portion of their presentation is more about how do they gamify the process of governance. And in fact, governance, much like catalog, is almost like if I could be candid, like, it's a great SEO term because that's how people search for technology. But almost all the time when we're implementing a new program with a customer, they switch it to something like data enablement, or, it's more of like an educational piece, or governance tends to have a lot of red tape associated with it.
Everybody wants governance. Nobody wants to be governed. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
You know what? You call it whatever you want. Enablement's a nice, pretty picture to add to it, because everybody wants to be enabled. I define data governance in a very strict way. I define it as the execution and enforcement of authority over the management of data. You can get a bunch of people into the room and you can get them to discuss the data and kind of swing back and forth and sing Kumbaya together. Or you need to, at the end of the day, execute and enforce authority over your data, whether you call that enablement or you call that governance. The government is not coming to you and saying, here, follow these rules if you'd like. They're saying you're going to be held accountable for following these rules, and we're going to audit you. When you're defining data standards in your organization, you're not going to give them to people and say, follow them if you'd like. No, we're defining these standards to follow the business strategy to achieve certain goals for the organization. I think people are trying, you're right, people are scared by the term governance. They think that the data police are going to come. Nobody wants to be governed. People are going to go running for the hills. But you've got to understand that there are some things. Okay, I talk about being non-invasive in the approach to data governance. I was speaking to a group within a Department of Transportation recently where the chief technology officer stood up and said, non-invasive is the only way to do this, but at some point we're going to need the stick. We're going to need to execute and enforce authority in order to get anything done. So we can sugarcoat it. We can call it data enablement, but I'm sorry, I'm a big advocate for the idea of governance because we do need to govern. People need to be governed. It's how you approach it. You can approach it top down, command and control, or you can look at what responsibilities that people have presently, and you can formalize those. It's a lot less threatening to them if you take that approach than if you come with a heavy-handed fist.
So let me tie on this.
I definitely want to go.
Well, I ended up cutting Austin off halfway through his conversation, and then we took a journey. So let's let Austin finish up his point.
So a few things, like everything you said is true. Like there's, but I think there's tiers to it, right? I mean, you can't get creative with how you govern external facing reporting that you publish to regulatory agencies. Like,
right.
Sorry, there is no room for creative, you know. But however, there's a ton of experimentation in analytics and things like that I think people can get more flexible access, coming back to like a data standpoint, right? Like we can give them a sandbox that has data that's masked so they can't harm themselves. So like my version of non-invasive governance, like I agree, love the approach. I think the other piece is how can we, and this is how Patagonia, one of our customers, like describes it, is like governance by design, which essentially means you don't really get to the point where you have to come down with the stick for the things that by default should be governed. Like it's just part of the process. Like, no, you don't get access to sensitive information. No, you don't get access to individual salary information. Like that is our governance by design. So I don't ever have to come and retroactively say like, no, don't use that. You know, it's just simply a part of the process. I think what I started the conversation on the people side was there are so many other things under this massive umbrella of governance that are beyond just policy and like access and things like that. And it's more of the piece of like, we're doing all of this with data to get value out of it. Like we're trying to increase revenue, decrease, you know, all the top level metrics, right? And to get people on board with that, maybe governance isn't even the right like frame here. It's more of just like, how do we get people to use data to improve our business? And in that piece, I've seen companies like Grainger doing some really cool things with like, we call it gamification, right? They're actually incentivizing, going to our conversation earlier, they're incentivizing their users through, they call it like the Data Ninja program, where every time you do something positive in the data ecosystem, whether that's defining canceled orders, whether that's contributing something in Atlan or enriching your data estate with the ecosystem, they're getting some type of points, which results in like a monetary reward or, you know, some type of feedback. And so I think there's a lot of ways like this badging program, this ninja program that Grainger is doing, or Fox is a customer of ours that has created data.fox internally, where it's almost like the internal community where people can go and just ask any question that they want. And powered by that is Atlan. Same thing with Zip. Like Zip uses Zipipedia. You know, it's Atlan behind the scenes, but at the same time, like they have created a great company culture, and they're just sort of making data part of that company culture. And there's so many programs that really have nothing to do with Atlan, like that incentive program about ninja badging. You know, that is just all about data and analytics, including us. I guess we're a part of it now, but like that is just their culture to get people to start doing the right things and make that behavior change, you know, to all of the work you've done, like in a non-invasive way. So it's not me coming to them and saying like, change behavior. It's them saying like, you're already doing these things. Why not just do them? Like, let me tweak it a little bit and you'll get rewarded for it. So like
they move from informal to a more formal way of doing things. And the move from informality to formality also takes you from ineffectiveness to effectiveness and from inefficiency to efficiency. So I think there's a lot of governance already taking place in organizations. The idea is to look to see where it is, formalize it where it will work for you, recognize that at the end of the day, you're going to need to execute and enforce authority. I think Juan has something to say about this.
To connect the dots here quickly. People. And I think one of the things that we really need to go focus, and this is why we need to get out of our technical bubble here. It's on the people side, and we're talking about the word incentives a lot. Actually, this is my side of the desk. I'm the computer scientist. My wife's a behavioral scientist on the other side. You can see all over. We need more behavioral science and understand human behavior, understand what we're trying to go do and how we get there. So how do we meet people where they are? What drives them and motivates them? So what I'm seeing right now a lot is trying to understand and connect all the dots through human behavior. And then at the end of the day, you're connecting it back to your business strategy. So I think, again, it's not technology, it's a people process technology. We're all agreeing on that point right here. It's just that we just need to go execute it. We as technologists feel comfortable with the technology. We need to get uncomfortable and work with other people who know that side better than us.
Very, very easy to get distracted by technology too. I think.
All right, Bob, you got 5 minutes to do your takeaways, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you. I need 5 hours because we just laid in so many threads. But I think we've established that GenAI is super and is an enabler and a helper and a striver for data catalogs. It's a complement. I think we just talked about the role of a lot of the governance, the people, the processes, and the technologies coming together. Fabulous combination of conversations, a lot for people to sort out. So if they need some help following up on some of these things, quick one, Bob, how do people contact you?
Well, I'm available. I have an Insight Jam channel. I don't know. I know I post articles to that sometime. I'm available through LinkedIn. I also post a lot of my thoughts about generative AI, data governance, all of those types of things. So that's probably the easiest way. Or find me at KIKconsulting.com. KIK stands for Knowledge is King. Instead of using my initials and calling myself BS Consulting, KIK Consulting is the better way to go.
Great. Juan, if people want to get in touch with you, learn more, you posted some things on the knowledge graph research, etc.
So please follow me on LinkedIn. My email is juan@data.world, and listen to Cataloging Cocktails, the honest, no BS, non-salesy data podcast. We do it every week. We're taking a break right now. We've been at 185 episodes the last 4 years. So that's how you can find us.
That's fantastic.
Data.world.
All right. Austin, people want to get in touch with you, follow up, learn more, get some of your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I'll follow the same script too. I mean, add me on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, posting about data governance a lot, about GenAI and data catalogs together too. We're doing a lot of events for Atlan, whether it's webinars or great data debates. So I think constantly a good content stream coming from there. My email, austin.kronz@atlan.com. And yeah, or just go to atlan.com and you'll be able to talk to someone from our team. Tell them you need to talk to me. Happy to do so.
Well, with that, thank you to our panelists today. Just fabulous conversations. Very difficult to ring fence you guys because you know so much and have so many great experiences on the people, the process, and the technology side. And really appreciate you sharing all of that with the audience today. And we look forward to seeing everyone on Insight Jam session next month. So take care, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Everybody, this was great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Solutions Review is inviting you to join InsightJam.com. What started a few years ago as a social media event to celebrate enterprise technology has now grown into an always-on tech community with live events, discussions, videos, vendor showcases, and industry resources. Our vetted roster of experts, thought leaders, and analysts are sharing tips and tricks daily. So if you're interested in getting involved, join the long list of companies and brands who have already participated by visiting InsightJam.com today.